hanging out with Zeb and stuff.
Yeah, he is awesome. I think he was eating some home last night. He called me in the middle of the opening session and was like, "What are you doing?" And I'm like,
To begin this month's session, please welcome Sarah Salzberg, Director of Justin's RenTalks.
Oh my gosh, good morning, everyone. I love to see this little house. It is so early in the morning after a late night last night. How about that Velocicoaster? And yeah. I do know that this can be a tough session to get to.
Things I didn't hear it, I think.
I'm going to be so glad that you are here because we have an incredible lineup of RenTalks. I'm going to bring them out in just a minute, but before I get started, I want to tell you one little story. When my parents were newlyweds, they took a trip to Europe that has become family lore because it was nothing like what they had in their heads. My mom had recently dropped out of college. You guys, last semester of her senior year, she dropped out. And my dad was in grad school. So to say the least, they did not have a lot of money for travel. But that was okay because they had found a book called Europe on $5 a day. So they scrapped and
Oh,
they put together $5 a day. They booked their tickets
yeah.
3 month adventure. 3 months. And then they hopped on the plane. And that is when they cracked open the book. Is when they learned that it's about how to eat on $5 a day. Not hotel, not transportation, not sightseeing, none of it. So, needless to say, their dreams of a European vacation needed to be modified. They took turns doing things like one of them would eat one day and one would eat the next day. I get Monday, you get Tuesday. They washed their clothes in bathroom sinks and they depended on the kindness of strangers. In fact, one kind stranger in Switzerland actually invited them to come home and stay with him and his wife. Now, if my kids ever accepted an offer like that from a stranger, I would kill them faster than the stranger could. But in this case, the man and his wife were very kind and generous. And they became lifelong friends. They had visited us in America, and then I visited them when I was a teenager with a friend. We had a wonderful time with them. Bottom line is my parents' trip changed from beginning to end in ways that they never could have anticipated. And the relationships, the bond and teamwork between my mom and dad, and the friends that they made, aren't they cute? Look at my parents. It impacted the rest of their lives together, which is reflective of the stories you're going to hear today. The path through life isn't necessarily easy or straightforward, and it's rarely a straight line from A to B. But with the right people on your side, anything is possible. That is where today's RenTalks come in. Somewhere in the intersection of what the heck is next, and I've got your back. Part of what makes these RenTalks so special is that the stories are true. Some are sad, some are thought provoking, but they're all real. And you are going to be hearing from 4 educators and a student who are willing to stand in front of all 1,800 of you to tell their story. But they aren't the only ones in the room today with a job to do. Their job is just the most obvious. They speak. But PC also has played a really giant behind the scenes role in this session. For the last 2 months, he's been working with the speakers to hone their story. Then we've got Musselman High School student leaders. They're going to be doing spirit totes to welcome our speakers on stage. They will be our head crew and they awesome. Your job is to fill this space with love because giving RenTalks, it takes a lot of courage. And also, when you're up here, you really can't see beyond the first couple rows of people. So sometimes it can feel a little bit like you're talking to a wall. Luckily, filling a space with love is something that this community is so good at, and they are so lucky to have you. They're going to be able to feel your love through your interactions. Welcome them on stage like they are rock stars. Listen, laugh, roll, sigh when they're talking, so they know that you are with them and that you hear them. And with that, I think we should get this party started. Yeah. Yeah. As a little twist this year, each speaker has selected someone who is special to them to introduce them. In this case, the special person is our first speaker's daughter. Shannon Gunn, please come to the stage. Watching Andy Durden, and you probably used to go louder than anyone you know. And then there's the chance to throw in our sarcastic comment. Ladies and gentlemen, straight from Roller Connor and armed with a quick wit, please fill the room with love with my dad, JRGC. Good morning, fellas. Excited to be here with you. Everybody get the screens on, party started. Not been with Andy Griffith, and I'm not going to pop my gum on stage, but seeing that spot on. So sometimes your best paths in life are detours. That's probably not how you expected this to start. And I'll be honest with you, 22 years ago, this is not the story that I thought I would tell. But stick with me for just a few minutes, and I will show you why this is true. My educational career started like so many others. 23 years old, fresh out of college, doing what I always wanted to do. I was coaching baseball. I was teaching school. The first several years, I loved what I did. But that slowly started to change. About my 8th year, I was done. I started to feel burned out. I started to question, is this really what I want to do for the rest of my career? I was bitter all the time. I just didn't feel the joy that I thought I would doing this job. So after wrestling with this for a while, I did what any sensible person would do in that situation. I resigned without another job in place. Now, my wife wasn't real excited about this decision, but she had a little bit of faith and trust left in me. But I want to give you a little piece of advice, especially for you younger ones in the room, maybe some older ones too. When you have a wife and kids, and you resign from your job without another job, your mother-in-law really begins to question the decision making in your job. Keep in mind, this is the same mother-in-law that right before she walked down the aisle to begin our wedding, she leans over and gets me with, "I love you like it's something." She's really a nice thing across, but she was less than thrilled that I just quit a good job without another job in place while being married to her daughter and raising these 3 lovely grandchildren of hers. But I'll give you a punchline early. We made it. Hey, but thank you. Thank you. I love the Western thing because, well, that's what we do. But back to the job issue. The next day after I resigned, my mother-in-law and wife were relieved to know that I got a job offer from our local John Deere dealer, Western Equipment. This was perfect. We have a cattle ranch back home, so selling farm equipment, that was going to work out great. And it did. The job was great. They treated me wonderful. But during that year, here's what I began to notice. I missed being at school every day. I missed the interaction with the kids and the staff. I missed a lot of things about it when I began to ask myself why. I didn't really have a great answer because just a few short months before that, I was so burned out. So here's where the story turns. That year out of education became the most influential year of my life, both professionally and personally. I began to analyze myself and what I had done and how I had done it. I talked to others in the profession and I started to gain insight from them. I began to see things from a whole different perspective, and here's the conclusion that I came to. I wasn't burned out of the profession. I was burned out of the way I was doing it. I wasn't really leading anyone at all. See, I came into education
with this authoritarian, this dictatorship mindset. I had in my mind that that's just the way you did things as a coach and a teacher. But here's what I think. True self-reflection is hard, but being humble enough to admit we need to change some things is even harder. That's what I had to get to. I had to become humble enough to admit to myself that I'd gone about things in the wrong way, that I had made it more about myself and what I could accomplish and what I could do as a coach, and that there was a better way to do things. Man, looking back at that time, I could have done so much better for my students, for my players, for my family. And that wasn't easy for me to admit. It's not easy for me to stand up here today and admit that. I'm a guy. We have trouble admitting that we're wrong, right, guys? I see it. No. So I know that's true. But it's what had to happen for me to improve as a leader. So I promised myself right then that if I was ever fortunate enough to make it back into education, I would do things different. I would lead in a different way. I wasn't sure exactly what that looked like, but I would work to surround myself with people that could help guide me. So ironically, before that school year was over, the job that I had previously left was open again. And there was a new superintendent that was hired. His name was Jay Edelman. And yes, that's really Mr. E on Family Feud with Steve Harvey. Okay? But I didn't have a clue who Mr. E was, to be honest with you. But he called and he asked me about coming back and coaching baseball again. By the end of that conversation, I was intrigued and eventually ended up accepting the job. Little did I know, he was exactly what I needed. As I tried to approach my job in a different way the second time around, I found that his leadership style was very similar to the one that I was striving for. I call it servant leadership. Putting myself aside and asking, how can I prioritize the growth, the well-being, and the overall experience of my staff and students above my own? I heard a quote one time from Dwight D. Eisenhower. It says, great leaders don't push, they pull. He used the illustration of a string. If we pull a string, it follows you. If you push it, it goes nowhere. I find that to be true. If we pull, we get more out of those that we lead because they can look ahead. They can see us out there doing it. They can see the right way to do things. And hopefully we can inspire them to follow our lead. If we push, we don't get the most out of those that we lead. If we push, and trust me, I spent 8 years pushing. We may say all the right things. We may sound tough doing it. But it's hard to follow someone's lead when we constantly have to look behind us to find them because all we can hear is their voice telling us what to do. So here's a couple of specific examples of what I'm talking about. One day, not too long after I came back, I go to the cafeteria, and there's Mr. E, our superintendent, with the hairnet on. Not sure why he had, you guys saw the picture. He's as bald as Steve Harvey is. Not sure why he had the hairnet on, but he did. But there he is, throwing up some mashed potatoes. We had a cafeteria worker that had to leave that day, so the cafeteria was short-handed. So rather than delegate that to somebody else, he just hopped in and did it himself. That seemed really simple, but that's bullying. That's leadership. That's proving to others that you wouldn't ask someone to do something that you wouldn't do for yourself. Or Rusty Puffelmarger, a good friend of mine, the superintendent at a nearby school, showing me what it means to lead with compassion. See, my sister-in-law, Carmen, and also a fellow educator, lost her full-term baby boy. And Mr. Puffelmarger was a major reason why she was able to come out of that on the other side as strong as she did. He was basically a counselor for her. He was never too busy to talk with her. He was her sounding board on some days and a genuine friend during the toughest time of her life, all while being her superintendent. That's leadership. And here's what he told me not very long ago. He said, Jared, during that time I spent with Carmen, I learned more from her than she ever learned from me. I can promise you that. That's a leader always looking for a way to grow themselves. But maybe the most important thing that came from that year is I developed deeper and more meaningful relationships than ever before. As a result, I became a better teacher, a better coach, eventually a better principal, a better father, a better husband. You name it, any part of my life was better because of that year that I spent out of education, because of the people that I was fortunate enough to be surrounded by in the years that followed that. All the relationships in my life are better and changed because of those people in my life and what I learned during that year. And that change had nothing to do with anything I did. But all of those people that poured into me during that year that I was out and after I came back. People like Mr. E that showed me that leadership could be impactful and enjoyable all at the same time. That you can hold people accountable for their actions, and negative actions do have consequences. But the better climate and culture your school has, the less problems there are, and the more pride and the more success there is. People like Mr. Puffenbarger that showed me what genuine compassion for others in a leadership role looks like, and that he was never too busy to help someone in need. That year out of education and the couple of years to follow is when I fell in love with leadership. Now I study leaders. I study what makes the great ones great. Fast forward a couple of years after I came back, I was getting my administration certification because I wanted to not only lead the students that I taught and coached, I wanted to lead everybody in the building at some point. So I love this quote. To the world, you may be one person, but one person, you may be the world. Every single day when we wake up, we're going to impact people. It may be something small, it may be something much bigger than that. But we will impact people at home, at school, at work, or anywhere else that we are. We never know who that's going to be, but how we impact it is completely on us. So after I finished up my principal certification, Mr. E asked me to be the high school principal. I was honored that he took a chance on me, and I worked hard to continue to grow as a leader, so I didn't let him down. 9 years later, let me tell you some things I've learned along the way about leadership. And these three things apply to students or adults, anybody out here, it doesn't matter which one you are. Number one, surround yourself with great people. At RenTalks AM, that's what's happening. We've been blessed to be surrounded by such a great staff and students and a community that supports our kids in everything we do on the next level. That's helped create a climate and a culture that's just different. We work hard collectively to try to create a brand that people recognize and that people respect. When people see this AD logo around Oklahoma, we want them to know that it represents integrity, high achievement, and excellence while doing things the right way. It's like I tell our staff all the time. Being successful never gets old, but doing it the right way makes it even better. That's our goal and our expectation every single year. We want to be the standard. Number two, high expectations lead to high achievement when the people setting the expectations pull. Here's the thing. You can be a leader that sets high expectations and holds people accountable to meet those, all while serving others. Here's a couple of examples of that. PC was at our school a few years ago, and this is where we were introduced to Johnson's Renaissance for the first time. And what an impact that has made on our school. And we attended our first JRGC shortly after that. But that day, he spoke to our 7th through 12th grade, and it was pajama day. It's how we dressed every day. It was actually pajama day. But he spoke to our 7th through 12th grades, and then he spent some time with just our student council leaders. And he asked this question. He said, what does it mean to you to be a student at Arapahoe Butler? And one girl responded with, it means we do everything at a high level. He followed that up with why, and she said it's just expected. Talking about making a principal's heart happy right there. But a few years ago, we had our first basketball game of the year on the road. And a day later, I see that I was tagged in a Facebook post, and I thought, oh no, okay, that's never been as an administrator. The superintendent from the school where we played the night before posted this picture of the visiting side of the bleachers. And she described in her post how there wasn't one piece of trash left on that side of the gym and how rare that was. That post went crazy and shared 2,500 times. Something so simple, based on expectations, that a leader like Mrs. Verity and Granted that recognized that and took the time to share that with others. Think about how many people were impacted by not only just people simply picking up their trash, but a fellow leader that took the opportunity to bring something positive to light. I got a call last year from a random number at school. And the lady said, I just wanted to call and tell you that I ran into your baseball team at Freddy's in Yukon yesterday. That's about an hour and a half away from school, and I thought, well, I should have answered this one. But she just wanted to let you know that was the most well-mannered, polite group of young people that I've ever been around. They were so pleasant. They asked me how I was doing, and we had a great conversation while waiting in line. That's rare in this time, so you must have a lot of great things going on at your school for them to behave that way. At that point, I was glad I answered the call. But here's what those stories tell. One, when high expectations are set by people that pull, people will work to meet those expectations. But also, it doesn't take much time to share positivity with others like these two ladies did. That's leadership too. Whether you're rewarding your kids for high achievement or good behavior, getting sonic drinks for your staff during the day, or writing a handwritten note about how much you appreciate each one of your staff members. The climate and the culture of your school is vitally important. And it involves everyone, staff and students both. And three, be intentional about what you look for and find the good. Finding the good doesn't just happen on its own. Someone once told me this, and it's stuck with me ever since. A hummingbird and a buzzard always find what they're looking for. What does a buzzard look for? The buzzard looks for something rotten, something no one else wants, something that's dead, something others see as disgusting. A hummingbird wants something sweet, wants something pleasant, something everyone would want if they ever just got a taste of it. And guess what? They both always find it. We're no different. These two ladies saw something good going on, and because they were looking for it, they shared it with others. Each year, I challenge our teachers with something at the beginning of the year. A few years ago, I challenged them to go about the year looking for the good. I've got a couple of teachers that still have the buzzard and hummingbird quote on the board. And then you have people like my secretary. She loves to give me a hard time. So she actually had a shirt made that said, "Buzzards are my spirit animal." She looked like a hummingbird. She's say you're buzzarding again. She tries to be the best version of a hummingbird she can be most days. So my challenge to you is simple. Everyone here aspires to be a great leader or you wouldn't be here. The first part of that goes back to the true, not surface level. Dig deep with some true self-reflection we talked about earlier. Are we really examining ourselves? And are we humble enough to change? And the other part is what are we looking for? Because the truth is, whatever we're looking for, we will find. Remember what I said at the beginning about detours. This is our annual graduation selfie that we take each year right before we walk out to begin graduation. Sometimes the best paths in life are detours. And if life takes you one, don't throw your hands up and say, "I can't." Hold your head up high and say, "I can and I will," because sometimes it takes a wrong turn to get you to the right place. Thank you.
They asked Jared about the biggest takeaway from his time in farms equipment sales. He said that a big one was understanding that every person has a unique story. And getting to know the people that he met helped him to build relationships, which he has found to be a useful skill, whether it's as a salesperson or as a school leader. Now, to introduce our next RenTalk speaker, I'd like to have Renaissance Hall of Famer, Four Corners Region Champion, and Rockstar School Principal, Liz Delzette.
Fueled by Scooby-Doo reruns and Swedish Fish. Powered by school spirit and enough positivity to light up an entire district. And with a surprising appreciation for mustaches. This next speaker is basically the rainbow bright of Renaissance, and with her always changing colored hair. She reminds us that culture isn't something we talk about, it's about something we create. Let's fill the room with love from one of our Four Corners Renaissance Region educators, the amazing Erin Schwartz.
It is an absolute honor and privilege to be on the stage today, and I do have to give a shout out to Liz for the most perfect description of me in that introduction. I can't deny any of what she said. According to a quick Google search, the last Montana is considered a ghost town, which I find pretty interesting because, other than my love with Tam, and maybe scaring a few of my students. I don't really feel like a ghost, but yep, that is my hometown. In the center of this tiny farming community, a mere 40 miles from Canada, sits a 2-room K through 8 elementary school where I started my education. The best part of the school was there were so few of us students, that's all of us. We were like a mini family. Many of us actually had siblings in the school, but we were all friends, despite the frequent bickering you would expect from that age. And here I flourished. I loved going to school. I met my best friend for life, and I have many fond memories from kindergarten to 3rd grade. But then it happened. My brother was old enough to attend middle school, and he wanted to play sports, so we started attending the big school in Shelby, a town of 3,500 people, 30 miles from home. I went from a class of 2 to a class of 40, most of whom who had been together since kindergarten. And I was the outsider. And as I made it through middle school, into high school, that gap between myself and my classmates would grew, and the bullying only got worse. Don't get me wrong, there are still really great things in my life. And to others, I am here to be a well-rounded, active, and successful student. I was in choir, band, student government, Key Club, NHS, speech and debate, rap, youth group, Girl Scouts, holding leadership positions, and almost all of them. But that little girl, full of life and joy. Suddenly had a smile that didn't hardly tries. The hurtful words and actions of my classmates made me feel like I would never be good enough. I was constantly trying to fit in, and my sense of self-worth was non-existent. But even worse was how the adults in the school responded. They watched as the students prevented me from entering class because no one wants to hear. They heard the rumors that were started about me by my classmates. They watched the social distancing, how I was left out of activities. There was one student who regularly told me he was going to kill me. And the response was, he's just too nice to say something like that. And it hurt. That some of the adults I looked up to the most told me that I was just over-exaggerating. So even though I wasn't a ghost, I felt like I was alone. A social pariah that no one wanted to acknowledge. And despite my deep-rooted belief that I was so much to give to the world, the seeds of doubt have been planted. So be asking yourselves right now, how in the world did she get here? Well, as luck would have it, I've had some absolutely amazing people come into my life along the way. And today I want to share with you 3 incredible ways they changed my perspective on myself and the world. Because despite all the negativity and anger, deep down, all I needed was someone to remind me of my potential. And this is the point that Tori entered my life. Tori was from a town 4 hours away, which for normal people seems like a really long distance for a boyfriend, but that's average for someone from Montana. That's just normal. Life mission to make me smile and laugh every day. He encouraged me, complimented me, celebrated my successes, made me some sweet mixes. Millennials know what I'm talking about. And was the first person to ever ask me to a high school dance series. Tori quickly became a mentor to me, even as a high school student himself. He taught me to live life to the fullest. Make the jokes, laugh loud, take the risks, enjoy what you love to do, regardless of what people around you think. To just throw off that judgment from others and do what makes me happy. He made it clear that the opinions of those in my high school were not shared by everyone in the world. So I decided I needed a fresh start, new place, new people, where I could live life to the fullest and discover my purpose in life. I ultimately went to Concordia College in Moorhead, Minnesota. Go Converse, I can do that. I embraced the new start and quickly made friends while thriving in my classes. Yet I found myself holding back and keeping everyone at a distance lane. That way, if they abandoned me later, it wouldn't hurt as much. Even when happy and surrounded by friends, I lived in the fear that eventually they would reject me just like those kids. I made sure to not be too loud, not stand out too much, not draw too much attention. But one day, in my ancient Greek and Roman mythology and religion class, I asked him to let my guard down. During a discussion about qualities of the hero, the intrusive thoughts won, and I blurted out the most absolutely harebrained thought that was so off the cuff and strange that the whole class stopped and turned, including the professor, who asked me to stay out of class. I braced myself for a conversation about class behavior and unethical great. Dr. Eddie Small sat me down in his office and told me that up to this point, he thought I was a dullard with nothing to contribute to the class. For those of you that are like, that's weird, and were just as confused as I was, according to the New English Dictionary, a dullard is a stupid or unimaginative person. Ouch. But he went on to tell me that he was blown away by my thought. As it was something he had never considered himself. I was impressed with my out-of-the-box thinking. And he went on to tell me that my thoughts and ideas are important and should be shared. And that the people that mattered the most would embrace my big personality. But most importantly, he drilled into me that I should never make myself small so that others feel more comfortable. And he became my role model and confidant, really my bestie. And it was because of his thoughtfulness, encouragement, and confidence in my abilities that I became a teacher. He saw all the parts of myself that I hid from the world and provided me with that opportunity to trust people again. And his faith in my potential renewed the belief that I could impact the world despite my own insecurities. I knew I had to use my experience to prevent future young people from having that same high school experience I did by showing them I truly care about them and see them, even the broken, loud, and uncomfortable parts. So I became a teacher, bound to make a difference in the world. Yeah. I ended up my third school at the same time as this guy. That's why evaluating administrator was so often and built a strong relationship. Eric encouraged my creativity and authenticity in the classroom, and I loved my job. That is until he left. The next 5 years saw multiple changes in admin, principals, assistant principals, teachers, colleagues, you name it, everyone was leaving. And it made it incredibly difficult to build trust in relationships. I wasn't hiding myself anymore, but my evaluation started to carry words that were reminiscent of high school. Abrasive, ostentatious, aggressive, opinionated, not a team player. I started to feel like even though I was doing everything I was supposed to, I wasn't meeting expectations and that I was failing the students. During one of those frustrating moments, Eric called me and asked me to move to Kingman, Arizona and work at the high school underneath him. And I asked him why. Why me of all of the teachers out there? And he responded with, because you were good for kids. See, Eric saw the fire and purpose behind my teaching. It wasn't about the lesson plans or the assessments. It was about being the person that I needed when I was in high school. Someone who listened and cared. Someone who encouraged and believed. Someone who valued relationships and recognized how important they are to student success. Obviously, I moved to Kingman. But when I got there, my first priority was not my content. It was connecting with the students. I made it a priority to love them, see them, listen to them, and support them. I took all the care and kind words my mentors had poured into me and poured it into the students. I was the one that noticed the students struggling and often felt before they committed suicide. The only teacher that comforted a student on the Father Day. The one that says, take care of yourself first. Homework and think. When I get emails about being sick in school. I realized that as much as I needed mentors to help me, my students needed a mentor too. Every person in this room has the ability to make a huge impact on the lives of others just by telling them you believe in them and that they are important to you. Students, you can prevent bullying, social separation, just by including others and withholding judgment. Teachers can empower students and colleagues with genuine conversations and provide words of encouragement. Just like in my story, one conversation, one comment, one acknowledgement can make all the difference in someone's life. And for those of you that need a mentor, just look around this room. This room is full of people that will lift you up, help you in times of need, point out your strengths, and conquer even times of sorrow. Your tribe is right here in this room. You just need to make the connections. I'd like to end with a quick story. In 2019, I attended my very first JRGC, then JRGC, right here in Orlando, Florida. I was immediately inspired by speakers like Steve Bowler, Blake Parker, Tom Cody, PC, just to name a few. Blake had shared his story in a RenTalk just like this. And I ran up to him and gushed. I mean, like, fangirling. How inspiring this story was and how I connected with it. Dwight thanked me before responding with, someday you'll be on that stage presenting. And I laughed in his face. Well, I'm sure I am. Those few words, believing in a complete stranger, right, changed my life. So I leave you with these two questions. Number one, who is filling your cup, drawing out your strengths, celebrating your successes, and challenging you to grow? And likewise, who are you helping discover their passion and purpose, encouraging and inspiring to build a better future? Thank you.
By truly seeing possibility. You know, if I would have finished college without him, he gave me a safe space to explore my interests and worries while figuring out what to do with my life. That is the power of leaders. Erin still keeps in contact with him. Not only do they text a lot, she said, but she visits him every time she's in Minnesota. He's retired now, but he has an honorary office at the college. And now, our next speaker is our student speaker, always a highlight of RenTalks. And she requested that her best friend, Tessa Carteret, introduce.
She isn't afraid to tell the truth and is always up for an adventure. Brings energy everywhere she goes. She's so likable and outgoing that she can end up anywhere in a room, and I'm constantly amazing. Ladies and gentlemen, please fill the room with love for my best friend and student leader, Alexis Dishman. Yeah, Alexis, you rock it. Wow, it is so awesome to be up here with you guys today. Thank you, Tessa, for that introduction. That little girl on the screen, always loud, always happy, lived a pretty great life. She knew more than the average, and she was most definitely always going to find a way to be creative. But she never knew what life was really going to bring out. I grew up in a small rural town called Foster, a place that I've called home for 18 years now. Everyone knows everyone, and there's no real secret around here. Which, by the way, you are never going to safe in a county Facebook group. The beauty of a small town is the people and the small moments that create a lifelong journey to success. Like most kids, we don't know what our future will hold until we unlock the moments in our lives that make us who we are and learn who we will be. Fast forward a few years, I transitioned from middle school to high school, the big four. The years that they tell you will remember for the rest of your life. I started to find my way in the crowd. I joined the clubs, I took the honors classes, I made the teachers like me because I thought all education for was for good grades, a good resume, and a sprinkle of confidence. And until I started to see that I had no voice, I had no purpose, and I had no real reason behind anything that I had set out for myself. I tried to fill some checklist, but instead, I just lost my voice. My sophomore year, I was asked to help run an academic rally. At first, I asked myself, academics and a pep rally? How does that work? How can academic achievements be rewarded in a system that always seemed to look at academic success as a given, as something people should just have? So I did what I always do, found a way to have fun, said yes, and it started working. My friend Casey and I ran the rally and we created a system that worked like a charm. It got people excited to celebrate others. As soon as the rallies were over that day, I ran to Mr. Golden, and when I say ran, I mean ran, and asked, how do we do this more often? Little did I know, that was when I found out one of the many people who believed in me and my ability to go beyond the standard and to use my voice. Junior year, we started off this leadership class. I was stoked. No one was ready to make more of a difference than I was. I started to engage myself in 6 R's, but the one that stuck out to me most was relationships. Relationships are what build you, so choose wisely. I was told the same a few times by some of the amazing mentors who brought me to what I am. But it didn't hit me completely until it changed my perspective on the power I have to positively influence others because they invested in me. I watched the way Miss Coleman believed in me and took me in as her own, and I was going to be worth something known to her. I watched the way my big sister Haley took me under her wing and validated my heart and eagerness in life. I even watched the way the discipline rates at our high school went down by 60% within the first year of implementing Renaissance. We have a community came together from different clubs, different grades, and many different perspectives, and found one common goal, and it was to create a meeting in their culture. And I watched the community of students around me see me, hear me, and love me. I even watched the people outside of my school start to look up to me, and even sometimes relate to me. They supported every milestone, every major accomplishment, even up to when I got the message last year from DC saying, I want you in my PC panel. Everyone in the class took a moment to celebrate me. They decided to choose others over themselves in that moment, and that is what leadership is all about. I immediately got to work. With the help of my friends and my classmates, I was able to come up with our favorite things we do at GHS to showcase the things that others can do on their own campus. Our Minnesota movie nights, which is so awesome, the room service, and our student staff connections that carry through generations. I started to look back at the one thing that stuck with me throughout all of these different adventures we've taken, and that was relationships. And the ones I had built with the people around me in such unique ways. It made me realize that I'm like Gloucester, but everyone in this room has a chance to build that connection with people they may consider the ghosts in their homes, with the cool kids, with the outcasts, and even with the kids who don't seem like they need it, but deep down, they're yearning for that one chance to be able to spark something bigger than themselves. I started to gain a little bit of awe and realizing how far I had come from the girl who knew nothing of what she was capable of, to now being one of the people her peers can always count on. What the lessons did not know was that the way to find her voice was in their bench. It was to lean on the people who invested in me, because without them, I would lack complexity. Connection is a part of human nature. It is actually essential. So the connection between students and staff is crucial when it comes to making the future count. When I finished my panel and went to see my crew, I remember Ms. Bowling came to me in tears, telling me 6 simple words. I am so proud of you. Now, let me sink in for a minute. I know you students have heard a teacher maybe say I'm so proud of you, but to hear it come on stage, I am so proud of you. It may have seemed so simple in the moment, but for me speaking on the stage now, they speak volumes. And you, educators in this room, have the power to make those same 6 words move out to someone else. And you students have the same power, the same opportunity to tell your friend or classmate, hey, you did such a great job on that presentation today, class. Or you can tell a staff member at your school, oh man, thanks for spending your career dedicated to kids like me. Because it takes heart to do that. But those phrases can mean just as much, if not more, to anyone you may encounter. Use the power of your voice to enlighten others. Now let me tell you about a time simple phrases like these meant the most to someone else. Back here, you see a picture of one of my best friend's brothers. Her name is Shante. Shante was far from much. She was kind, compassionate, tough, and most importantly, loving. She used her voice not only to make change, but to suffer through her story of cancer. She suffered on and off with cancer for 4 years. It had many obstacles that are beyond anything we could ever imagine. She unfortunately passed away this February, and ever since then, our worlds have never been the same. That's it past. She made sure everyone she met felt her loving, deep heart, and I was even able to take a piece of it myself. She sits with me today on my wrist to remember that I will use my voice even when I can't express it with my words or with my actions. Even if she isn't here, she proved that there's a time to fight without words. She proved that there's a time to fight with action, with heart, and with passion that just can't go unnoticed. I am sure none of us in this room would want to fathom the loss of Jashil's family side to another. But I can tell you one thing, they never had to do it alone. That is what we call family. And more importantly, culture. Culture that came from a safe, loving, and thoughtful classroom environment like leadership, but also in our very own community. Connection matters, especially when families not fluid. When I got back to my senior year, I was ready to go. I was ready to pour all my confidence back into this I was taking care of it. I wanted to see others grow me the same way. So then became the start. We unfortunately were told our principal, who had truly helped make Renaissance begin at our school, was promoted to a district job. As excited as we were for Dr. Magus, it was hard. It was hard. It was confusing. It was pretty frustrating. We went through the admin change with diligence, but it felt like something was missing. But this time, it wasn't our voices that was silence. It was everyone's. This became my motivation. I learned to use my voice not only to make change, but to also empower others. I learned that I can inspire others just by being consistent. As we continue to get pushed back, we push forward. And as we got more and more no's, we looked for more and more yeses. It became second nature to me as I navigated through the end of high school, but also into the exciting beginning to life. I was able to see that education was more than just doing what was told of me to retain some form of knowledge, but to make it my own and to own it. Now I am able to fulfill my dream of playing collegiate softball and saving lives by obtaining a degree in nursing. You know, the thing they say is hard to do together. No, you have more people than you do. And apparently, you may outgrow some of these people that I've talked to over the years, and that's okay. And you may also pick up different things from people that have helped you grow, but that's even better. But at the end of the day, life's all about balance and creating the connections long term and short term that fulfill that prophecy. All it takes is maybe not being ready to embrace what life has to offer, but doing it anyway. Because that concept right there will get you farther than you could have ever imagined. And everyone here has the ability to create that life for yourself. All it takes is just a little push from the right people. But my story is not over yet, and neither is yours.
They've made an impact on more than just one student. They make such a huge impact across the nation at Gloucester High School. Thank you for rocking your leadership and the social media that you share with us. It's really fun. Keep up, Gloucester. Now, I would like to introduce our next speakers, childhood friend, college buddy, colleague, and lifelong bestie to the stage, Kendra Glenn.
She enjoys a good buggy ride, soaking up sun, and is always down for adventure. She loves a good family life, and we should definitely not sit by each other at a serious function. Ladies and gentlemen, all the way from Saquon High School, let's build her new life for my best sweetie coworker, Krista Huff.
Good morning, Ren fam. I hear we're getting ready to have a rookie temporary sauce rally today. Y'all ready to drink that next energy? When I heard this was this year's theme, I thought, what a better way to introduce myself. Because I teach in a very rural school tucked in Ozark Mountains in St. Paul, Arkansas, where a lot of my students do ride horses, help raise cattle, and live on farms. For WASP is short for Whisper, and we love to talk in metaphors. I'll never forget the first time I told PC about all the rats I had to kill. I had no question if he read that text correctly and if he even wanted to come back to Arkansas. I had to reassure him that I was actually referring to my long to-do list of tasks that needed to be completed. Because I'm our student council sponsor. So I get to help plan and coordinate all of our homecoming and academic rallies with our student leaders. And while it keeps me busy with a never-ending list of rats to kill, it is now the best part of my job. I love a good theme and I love dressing the occasion, as you can see. But I'll be honest, it wasn't always that way. In fact, it used to stress me out and dreaded it. I'm sorry. I didn't step into this role because it was some lifelong dream. I became our student council sponsor and K-12 librarian by pure accident, mixed with a little luck and a whole lot of opportunity. Because truthfully, I'm an elementary teacher at heart. My bachelor's degree is in elementary education. And my last fourth grade class, well, there are reasons I love the classroom. See this class coming. And there were two students in particular. Isla, who was self-negative, questioned everything I assigned and just wanted to color every day. And Peyton, who acted on every single impulse and never stopped doing exactly what I asked him not to do. I was begging my principal for a way out. And lo and behold, our librarian of 40 years was ready to retire. And I jumped on that opportunity like my life depended on it. Now, what I didn't fully think through was that I was going to be working with middle and high school students too. And let's be real, educators in the room, you know that's a whole different world, especially those middle school students, bless their hearts. Yes, I got out of the classroom, but I was still struggling. And not just professionally, but personally. I also just went through a divorce and I had to move back in with my mom and stepdad. I felt like a failure, period. I was barely showing up in life, and I definitely wasn't making an effort to connect to those middle high school students because honestly, I didn't know that. And not long after I stepped in the role as a librarian, that's when I got told, if that ever happened to y'all, I got told to take on homecoming, and I inherited student council along with it. I had no idea what student council was even supposed to do, and our rallies were organized in low-key mid. But later, that same year, I attended my first Justin's Renaissance Conference in summer of 2022, and that's where everything changed. I had speakers who completely shifted my perspective. PC's message hit me hard. I had misunderstood those middle and high school students. They just wanted to be seen, heard, and loved, just like those elementary kids. They just showed it in a different way. And he's taught me that if we take interest in their lives, their goals, their dreams, dress like them, and even talk like them, they'll respect you even more as an adult. He taught me how to make that connection. And connection over control wins every time. I heard John Paul's message that going all in, he spoke purpose back into my soul. And he reminded me of my wife. And when I thought that conference couldn't get any better, we experienced the vote of pep rallies. And for the first time, I saw what rallies should be. And not just for homecoming, but for academics. To recognize and reward with that next level energy. I learned that if we wanted real change, it wasn't going to come from educators doing more. It was going to come from students having ownership. So, my team and I, we came back that year to school on fire, and we implemented the Johnston's Renaissance Framework. We rebranded, and we started asking our students real questions about our school culture. And what we found was eye-opening. What our staff believed about our school culture and how our students actually felt It didn't match at all. And that's when we knew we had work to do and we had our work now. We identified our core values as family, integrity, and excellence. And we locked in that core value of family. And we all made a priority to build those relationships, to really see the students, to hear their stories, and understand them and why they are the way they are. And we established mutual respect, and we gave them ownership, not just in things and games, but in the conversations that matter. We started having real talks about how students treat each other, about how they feel walking to school every day, about their relationships with their teachers. And year by year, we'd come back from a conference and we kept building by including what we learned. Our rallies felt better with music bingo, the slang game, and yes, I love using their slang, and I love it when they cringe. That's real what. Started to shift. And students who once felt unseen, they started stepping forward. We started creating opportunities for our students to discover their passions. Our music teacher, Mr. Alexander, he did a great job with this. He listened to his students' interests, and they formed student rock bands. And with little incentive from our Saints books, they started performing at our academic rallies. And we watched more students want to join music class and learn instruments to be a part of these bands because they had a place to belong. Our Disney homecoming is slayed because our students had full ownership. And we took the idea exchanges from the other schools that had been implementing Johnston's RenTalks. And we created systems to best fit us, to recognize, reward, and reinforce. From our fire awards, student council faculty stars, our safe work BBIS, and we've seen those results. We had a 73% decrease in discipline referrals after implementing our PBIS. And with 100% graduation, and with a 100% graduation rate, our school grew from a C to a B in 2025, which is the same year that we received our Silver Level of Distinction Award with Johnston's RenTalks. There are 2 awards that we got from Johnston's RenTalks that really created that culture shift. And shout out to the big brains that came up with these. Y'all ain't left no crumbs with these awards. The honorary diplomas, where the seniors honor the staff team member that impacted them the most. These are the moments where a student can make an educator cry, but in the best way. And on senior day, when those boards are handed down, you don't just see a ceremony. You see relationships, you see connection, and you see the true heart of the school. And when I asked some of these students before they graduated what their favorite part of school was, they didn't say rallies. They said it's the relationships they have with their peers and our staff team. That's culture. That's impact. But my favorite award to give is the Turnaround Award. One of the most powerful things we could celebrate. Remember those 4th graders that made me want to leave the classroom? Alan and Amy? They graduated this year, and they both received the Turnaround Award. Aiden, who once acted under impulse, he learned the severity of those consequences. And he started putting all that energy to good use on the basketball court. He discovered his passion, and he started making better decisions. And he became a role model student embodying family integrity and excellence. Ala, the same student who questioned every summit and just wanted to color. You know, she joined student council her freshman year, which was the same year that we implemented the Renaissance framework. And when I took the time to truly understand her and to connect with her, I realized she had a few things in common. But what Ala did is she turned her negative attitude and loud voice into something bright and bold, and it flowed throughout her personality and artwork. Ala's passion was art, and she went on to become one of the best art students to graduate from our school And she's going to be attending the U of A in the fall to become our teacher. But the Turner Award represents something bigger than success. It represents growth. It represents a student who faced something hard and chose to change. Change can be scary and uncomfortable, can it? But what I've discovered is that we make our most growth when we're outside of our comfort zones. Life's hard no matter how you look at it, but you get to choose your hard. So, life's hard, that part's not optional. But what is optional is how you respond and who you choose to be in the middle of it. You don't get to choose your past. You don't get to choose your circumstances. And you sure don't get to control what tomorrow brings. But you do get to choose who you're going to be in those moments and how you show up. You know, we're always asking our students what they want to be when they grow up. What we should be asking is, who do you want to be? Because the truth is, whether you're a student leader or an educator, we can all make a turnaround, no matter what season of life you may be in. You may not feel ready. You may not feel confident. You may not feel like you have anything left to give, but you can still choose to do it anyway. As I watched this year's group of seniors graduate, I realized that we had all experienced some hardships, and we had all made a turnaround in our own way. You know, in a lot of ways, these students taught me just as much more than I taught them the last few years we spent together. But I am so thankful to Johnson's Renaissance for providing the framework and the resources to make that experience happen. Being a student council sponsor, leading high school students and coordinating rallies went from something I had to do to something I get to do. And I never thought I'd live to tell the tale on this stage either, but here I am because we chose to anyway. Now, don't pull yourself up by your bootstraps. Straighten those hats. Saddle up and choose to enjoy the ride anyway. Y'all, let's have the ringest Stupid Renaissance rally this park's ever seen today. Woo!
Her goal of empowering students this year, St. Paul High School brought students to JRGC for the first time. And Chris is excited to see what they learned from the conference and how they implement it when they get back to campus. She said that they're also coordinating a leadership event in fall with PC and is hoping that more schools in Arkansas will implement the Johnson's Renaissance Framework. Now, our next speaker is going to be introduced by his colleague and partner in crime, the great Ginger Sobel.
He is an assistant principal. He's an AP statistics guru. We all know him as a school culture expert, and he's my friend. And just last year, he picked up a new title, Dad. So, to help me with this introduction, I'm going to throw it all the way to Henderson, Kentucky, Henderson County High School. Millie and Natalie, take it away.
All right, y'all see how my teams did that after winning the championship? I want y'all to pretend like you just won a championship. All right, I want you to repeat after me. Hey! Hey! That was decent. That was decent. But I want to try it one more time. If you work for Justice Renaissance and you're impacting lives daily, if you're a faculty member who's on fire to go back to make your school better, if you're a student leader in Orlando, Florida, at the best school conference in the world, I need you to repeat after me. Hey! All right, I feel a whole lot better now. Y'all on the same page as me. I had to get that out. I'm so excited and honored to be on the stage with you all today. Because here's the thing. You all sitting in this room, each and every one of you, you all are Renaissance. Renaissance might be a framework, but more importantly, Renaissance is a community. I plan to discuss how Renaissance's impacted me both personally and professionally. But first, I want to tell you a story about something that made me who I am today. And I believe placed me on this exact spot, on this exact stage, in front of these huge, crazy screens, attempting to inspire you. This has a lot to do with it. Look closely and tell me what you see. Some might see a map, some might spot a river, some might notice county lines or interstates, some might actually begin to point out the stars on the screen. I know that there are at least 25 people right here that recognize that that's good old Henderson, Kentucky. Yep, I am from Kentucky. Yes, we do wear shoes. But back what's on that screen. What I see are homes, or home, I guess we could say. See, these stars on this map are all the homes I lived in before I graduated high school. One time in homeroom, no pun intended, I remember a conversation with a good friend where we counted exactly how many moves there were. And once we got past 30, we lost count. But out of all of those 30 plus moves, there's one move that I will never forget. There's me, little Connor, fresh turtleneck, bold cut, UK jacket, basketball on my hip, every dream in the world. There was also David, Brandon, and Amy, all of my half siblings who were much older than me. 36 Meadow Street was home to all of us. This is where I was raised from birth to 6 years old. Not one single move. My mom, Carla, was a hairdresser. My dad, Joe, was a concrete finisher. Two of the absolute hardest working people I know, both who are still working well into their 60s and 70s today. When I was 6, my dad did $1 million job in Houston, Texas. See, my daddy loves concrete so much, he wanted to name me concrete. And while I may have heard I think I went to CON and they decided on Connor. Good choice. Anyways, my dad did this $1 million job that he was gambling he'd complete in 3 months. As soon as the school year was over, we moved to Houston for the summer. This was the first move, but not the move mentioned earlier. 110-degree heat every day, lots of airplanes, living in a small apartment almost 1,000 miles from home, no family or friends other than my mom and my brother David. I don't remember many big details, but I do remember not seeing my dad much at all. He was gone every morning at 4 a.m. before we woke up, and he still wasn't home when we went to sleep either. One interesting thing is, this wasn't the first $1 million job my dad had completed. And something I failed to mention earlier is that growing up, my dad was an alcoholic. I know you hear a lot of people say that, but my dad truly was an alcoholic. He couldn't survive without concrete, coffee, or alcohol. He blew money in drunken stages that we could never imagine, and I've only heard portions of stories about to this day. But let's come back to this because this story is about neat moves I will never forget. We were still living in Houston less than 3 months originally planning for the job to finish. I actually began first grade in Houston and we had moved to a bigger apartment. The second move of my life, but not the move. My dad would tell us every day that the job would be finished over and over again. I started to wonder if we would live in Houston forever. It was the middle of the night, and my mom woke me up out of the bed to sleep. My mom was the strongest woman I know. She had a look in her eyes I'd never seen before. She was panicked, frightened, and clearly upset. It was a look you never want to see in your parents' eyes. Behind her stood my brother, who was 13 at the time, staring at me like a statue with no expression. Several duffel bags lay by the door. I was unsure what was going on, and as I've gotten older, I've pushed this memory so far in the back of my brain, it almost seems like a scene out of a movie. I began to ask the questions that jumped to my mind. What is going on? Where are we going? Where is Dad? My mom deflected those questions in order for me to grab my backpack and my suitcase. I refused, and I continued to ask those same 3 questions. I was looking for my brother to be confused as well, but he was already loading the trunk of the car. Looking back, he was much older than me, and my mom had already filled him in on what was about to happen. By the time I got in the car, I was now screaming those same three questions. What is going on? Where are we going? Where's Dad? Finally, my mom answered, we're going home. Your dad's going to meet us there. And keep in mind, Houston, Texas is a 24-hour drive from Henderson, Kentucky. As we pulled off the apartment complex, I remember looking through the back window of my mom's Chevy Lumina thinking he was going to run out after us. He wasn't there. My dad had got his third DUI. This was the final straw on my parents' marriage. This memory, while still very vivid, what happened next, the drive, the weeks, the months, I don't remember. It's all blurred. This story also isn't about how my dad is a bad parent either. My dad's sober now. He quit drinking cold turkey and bottled wet like that loves Millie as much as I do. It's definitely him. This story is about how this move changed my life and my definition of home. After my parents' divorce, financial stability was no longer certain. Two homes, mom's house, dad's house. Where are you staying this weekend? Both parents were renting, and each year when the lease was up, it was on to the next house, the next duplex, the next apartment, a new side of town, a new neighborhood, a new boyfriend for mom, a new girlfriend for dad, new friends to meet, a new bedroom to move into, new everything. But no matter where we moved, and whether we had unpacked or not, there was always school on Monday. See, as educators, we often don't think about the fact that those doors are opening every Monday. We don't know what happened over the weekend or last night. The students might show up or they might not. One of the hardest things about being an educator is we can't control if the students show up at all. But one of the harder things about being an educator is we can control if they show up too. And even more importantly, we can try to give them something they want to show up to every Monday morning. Never in years when I was in high school, I thought I'd be a teacher, let alone an assistant principal. I spent time in the assistant principal's office. I like school. I love school. I was really good at math. But without the consistency of school and teachers who cared for me, I 100% would not be where I am today. I would simply be another statistic, a statistic from a kid with a divorced family, torn by alcoholism and instability, part of an unbreakable cycle. But having educators who cared about me and challenged me and kept up with me after high school to ensure I was still pursuing success put me exactly where I'm supposed to be, back at home, trying to pay that bill. 4 years in Henderson County High School was the longest I attended one school consecutively. I realized that JRGC is home. Colonel Jim, the Blue Unit, Room Marshall Horn, Room B213, Colonel Cafe were home to me. And after a couple of years of being a math teacher at HCHS, there was this crazy lady named Kendra Showfall who asked me to attend the same called JRGC in 2018. See, I'd never been on a plane before, only been to the beach a few times, never been to Disney World. After one day of being at JRGC around this amazing community, I realized right then this conference is home too. The Renaissance community, you all are home. So we decided to make HCHS a Renaissance school. The first thing I wanted to do was make my high school feel like home. And I also wanted to make HCHS feel like home for every single student that walked into those doors. And for me, that meant three things. Number one, be consistent. Show up early, good or bad. Welcome them at the door. Give grace. Have a place where they feel comfortable coming every day. Set the expectations frequently. Recognize what students do well. Reward students for proficiency and growth in the same reward. We decided our teachers show up every day. They deserve a monthly food truck Friday that they get super excited about. Our secretaries are already asking when Paradise Pizza's up next year. Number two, make people feel seen. I wanted students to see their name, their work, their pictures in my room. So I always had a bulletin board just for what they wanted to hang up. And it's something that they always signed, committing to whatever our classroom goal was for the year. In our main hallway, we have a tradition of putting their handprint on your graduating class numbers at freshman orientation. They get to see those in the main hallway every single day, and then they meet them on stage at graduation. As an administrative team, we decided we were going to know our students' names before they ever entered the building. And so we took an old file room and we made it our war room. Every student's picture and name hung up before they ever showed up. We wanted students from every background to know they're welcome here. So we painted our welcome to HCHS wall right outside of where students are enrolled, displaying every flag of the nations represented by our student body. Our REN team, They wanted to give teachers the ability to choose their own student spotlight each month, displayed right outside of their classroom with their students' pictures. And number three, my personal favorite, create memorable moments, the ones outside of the classroom. We decided we were going to create experiences in our building that students would never forget, the stories they would tell for the rest of their life. Experiences like waking up at 6 a.m., standing in front of the school in the dark, just to run in and hunt flags for spirit week. Experiences like hugging your third grade teacher while handing them the life impact diploma. Experiences like ending the year with the rest of your graduating class in a parade that starts downtown and ends at the football stadium as the sun goes down on their senior year. All of these things weren't the norm. The status quo needed to be challenged. But the reality is, comfort and growth do not coexist. For our school to grow, we had to get rid of the way things had always been done. For our school to go from being bottom 10 in the state out of 228 schools to being in the top 30 in the state out of 228 schools. You have to start by pouring the foundation of culture. And there's so many other things that are important. PLC systems, master schedule, all those things that go into it. But it starts with pouring the foundation of culture. And for me, that felt pretty familiar because I know a thing or two about pouring concrete. I started pretty young. First, you got to dig in. You don't pour over what's broken. You find it, you expose it. That's us every day. Student leaders and staff and team members identifying what's not working in our schools. Second, you set the structure, forms, rebar, a plan. That's our systems, our traditions, our expectations. And then it's go time. The truck shows up and the concrete starts pouring fast. So you throw on your rubber boots, you jump in 2 feet first. And that's us. That's the moment when kids are screaming at the gym at the top of their lungs and rushing the court just to win a spirit trophy. Or they're showing up at 5 a.m. on the first day of school for senior sunrise. But here's the part people forget. Pouring a foundation takes time. It won't be perfect right away. You got to smooth it out over and over again and try and get your level best every detail right. And that's us too. Reflecting, adjusting, making it better for the next group of kids. And that's what culture is. Not one event, not one pep rally. It's what we do every single day. And if you do it right, that foundation lasts. Because the other reality is, what does work, what works, works. People might want to say that all of these things that we learned this week and that we're going back to our schools on fire to do are extra. If it works for kids, it's not extra, it's essential. So I challenge you to get uncomfortable and go back and do all these essential things that make you feel like home for every student. Because for some kids, it's just like me. School might be the most consistent place they have. Thank you. Actually, before I leave the stage, I gotta do this one more time. Just one more time, so y'all join me. If you're ready to experience the best day of the year with RenTalks, so RenTalks reality and fitness champion Lord Taylor, with all those breakout sessions between PC and friends, I need you to repeat after me. What's this phone? Yes, experience like this. The only thing you want is experience like this. Whether anyone else will use experience like this. Whether anyone else